Hi, I'm Christo. This is the Timex M79 and it costs $279 and it's really fragile. So I'm going to have to be really careful about setting this watch down on the table. I don't want to scratch its plastic crystal. Okay, I put it down and I didn't even scratch it. Oh no. I scratched the crystal. Do you have any idea how many nude photo shoots I'm going to have to do now to pay for this watch? Last year, Timex released a watch called the Q Timex Reissue for $179, which was a reissue of a quartz watch made in 1979. I will refer to the M79 as the M. The M does not appear to be a reissue of an old Timex, but rather a derivation of the Q Timex reissue, which I will refer to as the Q. The M uses an automatic movement, whereas the Q uses a quartz movement. The M has a differently colored bezel, reminiscent of the Rolex GMT Master 2, nicknamed the Batman. The M is 40 millimeters in diameter. The Q is 38 millimeters. I bought the M from Timex for $279. It came in this simple yet elegant watch box. Information about the watch is printed inside the box. I think this is a nice touch. Because the watch box is very long, it's hard for me to find a place to store the watch. Also, it will weigh at least 1.5 pounds when I ship the watch to the person whom I resell it to on eBay, which will make the shipping a little more expensive than usual. No documentation comes with the watch. You can obtain the user's guide online and get information about Timex's 1-year warranty online. You can also purchase an extended warranty for an additional 4 years for $5. I am an independent watch journalist. The M was paid for by me, and I received no payments nor gifts in exchange for this review. Timex calls the M's bracelet a mesh bracelet. It uses a sliding clasp. You shouldn't need special tools to size it, just something narrow to stick in here to unclamp the clasp. Aesthetically, I like the bracelet. Upon close inspection, you could see that the bracelet is made out of individual pieces of pressed metal. And this is something one sees in cheap bracelets. The bracelet tapers nicely from 22 millimeters down to 16 millimeters and is 17 millimeters at the clasp. The actual lug width is 18 millimeters. The finishing on the bracelet is pretty nice. It's very smooth on the top and bottom, though rough on the sides. I wouldn't call this bracelet an arm hair ripper, but it's definitely an arm hair tugger. I've seen worse, though I don't find this bracelet very comfortable to wear and can only wear it for short periods. The finishing on the case, while not terrible, is below average of what I would expect for a $279 watch. It's brushed on the front and polished on the sides. I think the case design will be very subjective for people. I think it's fine, though it's not something I can get super excited about. The M wears pretty well on my roughly 7-inch wrist. It's not a surprise. The M is a smallish watch by modern standards. The case diameter is 40 millimeters. The lug-to-lug is 46 millimeters. The case thickness of 15 millimeters is on the thick side, which is going to be an issue because the rounded protruding crystal is made of acrylic, which scratches easily, and you're going to be banging this crystal into things often. I talk more about this junk crystal later. There is an exhibition case back. The movement doesn't have a lot of decoration, just a dull-looking rotor that is very lightly signed. Timex was just going through the motions here. At $279, Timex could have made looking at the case back a more satisfying experience. The movement number on the caseback has a cryptic identifier that I can't find information about. I called Timex to ask them what the movement is. They gave me more cryptic information about the movement that sounded like utter nonsense, and I didn't press the issue. The rotor has Miyota printed on it. The movement looks and sounds like a Miyota 8000 series movement. What I can tell you about this movement is that it doesn't hack. When you pull the crown all the way out to set the time, notice how the second hand doesn't stop. Movements that can stop the second hand are called hacking movements. This is a non-hacking movement. This movement's inability to stop the second hand means that you will only be able to synchronize the watch when it's not charged. Personally, I hate non-hacking movements. They're not compatible with showing up on time for work. You can hand wind the movement, though this will be a somewhat torturous experience because the crown is so abrasive. The movement's rotor rattles loudly like a Miyota 8000 series rotor, and this is going to annoy some people. Because Timex has chosen to conceal what type of movement the M uses, I can't tell you what the normal range of accuracy is for the M. My particular M is running about 10 seconds fast a day in the horizontal position and minus 2 seconds fast a day in the vertical position. This is pretty respectable for an entry-level movement. Non-hacking movements are antiquated and have no business in today's watches, especially not at the $279 price point. Non-hacking Miyota movements are still put in new model watches that cost even more than the M by other watch companies, but this doesn't make it okay. The commercial watch industry is able to get away with this nonsense because the lack of competition in the commercial watch industry emboldens companies like Timex to get away with outrageously nervy behavior. It's not something consumers should nor have to put up with. The M doesn't have a screw-down crown. The crown is signed. The crown is hard to grip, and the knurling is rough feeling and extremely uncomfortable. It really takes work to turn the crown, and you gotta fight the pain of abrasion if you want to wind the movement to a full charge. This is not a $279 crown operation, nor even a $30 crown operation. I really can't remember the last time I had such a challenge operating a crown. It's shocking to me that I'm paying $279 for an acrylic crystal, which is not even as nice as my $60 Vostok Amphibia acrylic crystal. The Vostok has better distortion. An acrylic crystal is acceptable in a sub-$20 digital Casio watch. It is completely unacceptable in a $279 watch. Most scratches can be removed from acrylic crystals using toothpaste, but not all. Timex is paying virtually nothing to manufacture this garbage watch. I want a sapphire crystal. At a minimum, I want mineral glass. The army of internet groupthinkers are going to object and get very angry with me. Some of them will even call me names. They're going to say, well, the M is here to give us the authentic experience of owning a crappy watch that Timex would have hypothetically made in the 70s if they hadn't switched to quartz. And how dare you say we deserve a non-plastic crystal for $279? I don't have an answer to this objection. The crystal doesn't have anti-reflective coating. I might be wrong, but the bezel looks like it's made out of plastic. Timex doesn't say what the bezel is made out of. If the bezel is in fact made out of plastic, the paint on the bezel is probably going to scuff very easily. The bezel is unidirectional 120 click. The action is the worst I've ever reviewed. The bezel is too thin. It has a real gritty feeling when rotated. It has a tendency to get a little stuck, or at least want to get stuck. The bezel is slightly off. There's too much back play. I don't like how the lume pip is raised. I like recessed lume pips that are not going to get hacked off. The bezel is usable, but this is the bezel action of a $30 watch, not a $279 watch. This is a joke. The dial is okay, but has that cheap sub-$100 look to it. It's a Rolex homage. The dial background, when seen up close, has a gritty texture. The handset is plasticky looking. I really like the red second hand, even though it may not have the greatest contrast against the black background. I love the hour hand. Instead of going for a Mercedes logo like the Rolex, they used a T symbol. I think that's pretty cute. The day-date font is way too light against its black background and difficult to read. The lume is absolute crap that doesn't even last 15 minutes. At least they applied some of the crap lume to the lume pip. The lume is a joke. The M has 50 meters of water resistance. While this is not terrible, it's not great. For $279, I want at least 100 meters of water resistance. With 100 meters of water resistance, I can swim and shower with this watch on and not worry about water damage. It's shocking to me how Timex could be nervy enough to sell a piece of garbage like the M at $279. I'd pay about $70 for this piece of crap, and at this price, I'm sure Timex would still be making a good profit off this watch. I think what happens is that consumers get caught up in the groupthink vortex, and it goes something like this. Timex does a press release. Magazines like Esquire run stories about the Timex Q. So guys, go on YouTube to get more information about the Q. And who do they get their information from? Popular YouTube guys like the Time Teller, who don't even have the damn watch in their hand when they tell you to plunk down $179, which is a small fortune for someone who works for a living. The Time Teller says, yeah, go buy the Q at $179. Hey, the Time Teller has 100K subs, and he can quote esoteric information about obscure watches that were discontinued decades ago, so he must be some kind of watch rain man. So, naive consumer guy goes ahead and buys the thing. Timex, having made $1 gazillion on the Q, feels so confident about its ability to sell utter and complete garbage that they jack up the price an entire $100 for the M for no good reason. The whole situation is so sad and pathetic and sickening that it makes me want to heave. Unlike the Timex Marlin reissue, which I will review soon, the M has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. It is an egregiously overpriced piece of garbage.